You're listening to Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. Small town feel with big time ideas. After all, you are entitled to Brad's opinion. Here's your host, Brad Allard.
All right. Well, I'm going to get my camera here. Look good. Yeah. Good as always. Yeah. Anyway, he's going to, there we go. I don't want to be quite so much in your face, but there you go. We're going to be talking about the business in Iran today. And I may be interrupted a couple times by emails and texts. I got a couple out there for all the various events we got coming. April is really a busy month for the nonprofits. So if you're out there listening in podcast land and you have the nonprofit information, send it here, whatever, and we'll be good to go. We're going to be talking about the business in Iran and how an update on that. This is kind of like a makeup show for Tuesday. I was about to get in the car to come drive to the studio, and Victoria texted me and said has a flat tire and she's sitting in a discount tire, and she didn't know when they were going to get to it and all this other business. Usually they're pretty quick, but you never know. So we had to cancel at the last minute, and I just wasn't prepared really. Just get on there and rant and rave, and I like to be prepared when I rant and rave. Got my homework done, and I got clips and stuff and whatnot. So we got a few of those a day. Oh, good. Here's something for Walk for Life and the car show. I'll be sending that to, I'm going to be sending that, come on, doggone it, sending it to Josh over there. I just got to think about what I'm doing. Anyway, I'll do great. Yeah, I'll do what I can. I'll probably just have to announce it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it on during the air because I don't want to be going and ah while I'm trying to do this. Anyway, so I'll be announcing it. Anyway, let's talk about first the sponsors before we jump into all this other stuff. And as usual, we have our usual caveats that this is my opinion. You're entitled to it, and not necessarily the opinion of the sponsors. I've talked to a couple of them, and they're like most Americans. They have concerns, you might say. They're not. Some are more supportive, you might say. Some are like, I'm really concerned about what's going on, what's going to do the economy. But I think nobody I was talking to that is not highly supportive of the troops. Or I think that was the one common thing, is that they were very concerned that we don't have mass casualties over there. And so far we have not. So we're doing the best we can on that. So anyway, back to the ads here. Our Place, is always, great place, wonderful place. Our Place was there Monday for breakfast, and and I always enjoy it because it's a good atmosphere. You can have your conversations, mind your own business, all this other stuff. You can only enjoy the atmosphere there. Also, same with Gina's. I went there with Jeff Kelly, one of the sponsors, there on Monday night, and they had chess going on, and that's really taken off. I mean, about 2/3 of the tables were full of chess tables and chess boards, and they were all, people of all ages playing, and on and on and on. It was pretty good. I really enjoyed it. And of course, the food was great, and it's even great the next day. I had some left over, ate it for lunch the next day, still good. That's a mark of a good pizza right there. You ever eat cold pizza, Josh?
I did. Yeah. I was a college student once.
Yes, of course. When I was in school, there was a restaurant in Waco, a pizza joint, and they had this $20 pizza, which for that era was kind of expensive, but it was called the hunk, and you could eat on that thing for 4 days.
Yeah, it was like the size of a table.
It was literally it was a huge square of pizza, probably a yard long, and or pretty close, it seemed like it. And my roommate and I would throw in a 10 each, and we would eat that thing for a week. Grab a piece on the way out to class, and that's what you do when you're in college. I never did the ramen noodle thing, so there you go. Also, thank you to Old Pro Roofing, 817-734-2756. Apparently, we got more rain than we figured. I'll get on the Facebook, and I make some wisecrack about how the prognosticator's always wrong and how we used to treat them back in the day. We used to...
Yeah, I saw your post about the Aztec civilization.
Yes,
that was funny.
Yeah. Well, I bet they were serious about their weather forecasting. But anyway, apparently there was a lot more rain other places. So if you had problems with your roof, call John, 817-734-2756. and he'll come check your roof out, and he'll tell you survived it or you had some damage. You know, as far as hail, I think that most of it was much more to the east of us. So, but they go about anywhere in the DFW area. So 817-734-2756. Then our friend Jeff Kelly, whom I just mentioned, at the Wethington Agency, 817-781-0546, or at jeff@jeffkellyrealty.com. I don't know if you subscribe to his joke of the day, but he has some pretty good ones, actually. And, you know, he kind of reminds me of the way Steve Carroll does his, you know, from The Office, some of these deadpan jokes. But anyway, but real estate, that's no joke. He takes it pretty seriously. So there you go. If you need somebody to help you with a new home to move in the area, something like that, or rentals, you know, he can handle about anything. He has several homes to sell. So, you know, when he was at Gina's, this is what I like about this particular podcast sponsorship was at Gina's. And Otto was there, and he visits with us a little bit. And then about 10 minutes later, the manager of the place comes over to Jeff, and because Otto sent her to him because she wants to buy a new house. She and her husband want to buy a new house. And that's the kind of connections you can make through Mr. Allard's podcast. Doggone it. Anyway, thank you for that. Also, our friend Rod Lewis at Burleson News Express. Look forward to it's becoming more and more commonly found and not just buildings like the Senior Center or the library, but also at Daydream Coffee and at Gina's and at Otto's, our place, and you know, several other locations, retail locations, several beauty salons and whatnot have it. And so Burleson News Express is something that if you want to get the word out, it's becoming a good source to do it because it needs content and it needs advertisers. And so check it out and see what you got with the Burleson News Express. Also, Will Cobb and his sister Emily Cobb are going to be, you put the House of Hope up there. Well, they're good people too. No, they're good people too. But anyway, True Climate Heating and Cooling at 682-244-2019. I'll do that again, 682-244-2019. They're coming to my house in about 2 weeks to check the air conditioner out. And it's something you should do probably, well, depending on the age, of course, of your air conditioner. But if you have one that's fairly new, that once a year. And if you take good care of it, you're going to get a good report. And we usually change the filters out pretty routinely and whatnot. But call them up. You'll talk to either Emily or their office manager. And doggone, her name slips my mind right at the moment. But anyway, True Climate are good people, and they'll take care of you very well. I know we have a lot of HVAC guys, but True Climate I could personally endorse both as people and as professionals. So if you need, you know, we're coming up on the heavy usage part of our air conditioners, obviously, so you need to have that, make sure it's all good to go. And we'll do the nonprofits towards the end. All right, so there you go. But anyway, about what's going on in Iran. Josh, you told me before show, when was the last time you filled up your big old vehicle that you drive, that big old bus?
Yeah, that's that CRV that's parked outside.
Yeah.
It was, I want to say last Friday.
What'd you pay?
I paid, I want to say like $3.54 a gallon.
Let's see, I've paid $3.19, but this is DBU's spring break, so I don't have to drive to Dallas the 3 times I normally do, so I was able to conserve gas. But I've been seeing it $3.49. I saw it, the cheapest I saw was right down the block over at the Walmart and the Murphy's at $3.35. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. Why is it like that? But it is like that now. As far as what's going on in Iran, I think we'll show the news clip first, so it'll answer or kind of, well, set the basis for our conversation. So if you would, run the news clip, please.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Yamas.
And good evening. We begin tonight with the president's emergency move to slow the surging gas prices in America. President Trump late today announcing he plans to tap into the strategic petroleum reserves, which is essentially fuel the U.S. stores up for dire situations. It comes just as Iran crosses a new line, attacking at least 3 ships moving through the Strait of Hormuz, a vital passageway for oil. This is a Thai tanker burning, a fire smoldering inside its hull. Iran apparently hitting energy infrastructure on land as well. You see it here. New video showing the moment a drone slams into an oil depot in Oman, causing that massive explosion. Oil is now clearly a major front and Iran's preferred target in this war, with a new commitment today from dozens of countries to release a record-setting amount of oil into the marketplace, hoping to ease the prices. We'll break down how much impact that will have for drivers here in the U.S. All that as war rages on several Middle East fronts. This new video showing Israeli bombs dropping relentlessly on southern Lebanon tonight, targeting Hezbollah. We've got this covered from all angles tonight, and we start with Garrett Haake at the White House.
You can see the drone above the oil depot in Oman before it makes impact, as the Iranian regime unleashes new attacks on ships in the Strait of Hormuz, including this Thai cargo vessel. Iran vowing to drive oil prices to $200 a barrel by stopping tankers from using the strait. And now, in an urgent effort to keep oil prices down, the International Energy Agency and its member countries, including the U.S., agreeing to release 400 million barrels of oil from emergency stocks. Tonight, oil prices holding steady around $87 a barrel, with the president explaining why he's tapping into the U.S. Strategic Oil Reserve.
We'll reduce it a little bit, and that brings the prices down. We have to get rid of the evil. There's great evil taking place in Iran, as you know, and our military has been unbelievable.
The president recently warning the Iranian regime against blocking the strait, just 20 nautical miles wide at its narrowest point, a critical corridor for more than 20% of the world's oil.
If Iran does anything to do that, they'll get hit at a much, much harder level.
Iran turning to unleashing these new attacks on oil after the Pentagon says it has decimated the Iranian military.
To date, we have struck more than 5,500 targets inside Iran.
President Trump saying he will end the war, quote, soon, because there's practically nothing left to target. NBC's Peter Alexander with the president today.
What more do you need to do militarily for this operation to end?
More of the same, and we'll see how that all comes out. Right now, they've lost their Navy, they've lost their Air Force, they have no anti-aircraft apparatus at all, they have no radar, their leaders are gone.
Most Republicans support the operation.
The president's been very clear about those goals, about destroying the missiles and the drones, destroying the nuclear program.
But the president facing pressure from some allies.
We ran on no more wars and these stupid, senseless wars, and then we have one that we can't even really clearly define why we did it.
All as inside Iran, a top security official now threatening that police are ready to shoot anyone who protests the Iranian regime after a deadly crackdown in January. Though tonight, a key advisor to Israel's prime minister is hopeful Iranians will take to the streets again.
Over 85% of the Iranian people detest the Ayatollah regime. All of these people have the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to do the right thing, and I'm sure they'll do it.
Garrett joins us now live from the White House. And Garrett, another headline we still have not seen or heard from Iran's new supreme leader, and the reason may not just be his security.
Yeah, Tom, another factor is that he was apparently injured on the opening day of the conflict. That's according to Tehran's ambassador to Cyprus and the son of Iran's president. At a government rally on Monday, he was represented by just a photo on stage. Tom?
All right, Garrett Haake for us tonight. Garrett, we thank you for that. With the promise of major releases of emergency oil supplies, I want to bring in Christine Romans. And Christine, what will this mean for gas prices, and what's the advice for drivers?
Tom, oil analysts tonight tell me gas prices are likely to go up anyway. Best case scenario here, prices rise more slowly than they have been. The price of a barrel of U.S. crude rose almost $5 today. Gas already up 60 cents a gallon nationwide since the war began. And the analysts I spoke with say $4 a gallon is still possible. Now, the world consumes more than 100 million barrels of oil every day. So even a record-setting release of 400 million, that's only 4 days' supply. Experts tell me nothing matters more than getting ships moving again through the Strait of Hormuz. That used to carry 20 million barrels a day. So the advice for drivers is, if you're at the gas station, fill it up to the top.
You got to fill it up. All right, Christine, we thank you for that. And we have some new reporting.
Hey, Josh, let's hang on. We're going to talk about that school strike in a little bit later. Okay, I'm not going to ignore that because that is a tragic thing. But I want to talk about a few things first, and then we'll get into that as well. First of all, one of the advantages of being an old man, as you've been through this before, and this is the third time in my adult lifetime, or even since teenage years, that we've had this kind of oil crisis or price increases at the pump. I remember back in 2007, I bought not a new pickup, it was a used pickup, but it was only about a year old. And basically, they were practically giving away pickups at the dealerships because the gas prices were so high. And I thought I was pretty shrewd because I bought a used Silverado that was in really good shape, and I got, instead of used car rates, I got new car rates on the loan, which is like 1.9 or something like that, which is you don't get for used cars. And I thought I was pretty smart until I filled up. It cost me $88 to fill up my tank because gas was over $4 a gallon then. All right. And when I started doing my DBU gig, I couldn't drive that truck over there all that often. So I got a Mazda, and it's a lot better for gas mileage. But still, the point is, I remember when I was in high school, when this happened in 2007, and now I've seen these oil shocks. I do remember a brief one about 9 years ago when Hurricane Harvey took out some refineries, and we had temporary gas spikes up to very high levels. Here's the thing about the gas prices. I'm not going to, I hope I don't sound like a Democrat right now, but what's happening at the gas stations is they're selling you gas at $3.49 a gallon on the expectation that their next shipment is going to be more expensive. The gas they already have in the ground, in their tanks, didn't change one iota, except it didn't cost more, it just became more valuable. And so what's happening is these gas price increases are anticipating further difficulties getting gas and getting more expensive shipments or whatever else. So they're kind of, in a way, stockpiling money. Prepare for that. Well, is that gouging? Well, I don't expect the gas stations to go out of business. But the panic that went with this gas prices, it was in anticipation of what's going on now. Is it a true shortage? It may become one. But I'm also talking to somebody who knows about the oil business with one of my buddies on Monday morning, and he was saying that we are over capacity in terms of processed fuel and in oil storage. And the Straits of Hormuz and all that does all that shipping, yes, it's causing prices to rise worldwide, and therefore it's going to cause our prices worldwide too, or rise too, because oil is an international commodity, and if supply is hurt, it may not hurt the United States directly, but it kills Europe, and it really hurts Japan and China and the rest. And so they're paying more for oil, and therefore people who have oil get more for their money, and they're going to raise the price, and that's what's happening. Also, you get a lot of speculators in the commodity markets that are saying, well, this is a bad situation, so I'm going to take advantage of it. I'm going to buy these futures contracts, and I'm going to make a heap of money. Because I could buy a gas or oil right now at $75 a barrel contract, and it's going to go up to what? I just checked about a minute ago when their news was running. It's $95 now. And so a lot of this is speculative investment, not so much a genuine reflection of supply and demand. Now, as far as tapping the strategic reserve, I know Biden got a tremendous amount of criticism, as he deserved it, by doing that during his administration, but that was strictly for, to try to bring the price of oil down or gas prices down before the midterm elections and all that. People are accusing Trump of doing the same thing. I think in a state of war like we're in, and that's what it is. Let's not get into semantics. I mean, they don't want to use the word war, but this is what it is.
No, they don't want to use the word war?
They don't. No, the Trump administration has told us people do not use the word war.
Didn't they just change the name to like a Department of War or something like that?
Yes, but we're not at war, according to them. We're having some sort of military operation, whatever. But then Obama did the same thing when we bombed Libya. It wasn't bombing; it was a military kinetic activity. That's exactly what they called it. I don't know what else you would call a bombing except a bombing. But when he bombed Libya, they would not use that word. And so Trump isn't using that word either about war, at least not officially. Does that make sense?
No, but
Yeah, well, you know, that's one of the terms Korean War and Vietnam War are kind of, in a way, technical misnomers because we never declared war on those countries.
Yeah, it was a conflict.
It was a conflict or a police action in Korea's case. That's what they called it. You know, as they were over there writing tickets or something. I don't know. Anyway, the point is that the gas prices are reflective of anticipated shortages and speculation more than a genuine reflection of supply and demand. And whether or not the oil companies should be profited from this or not, I do remember back in the late 70s when the oil prices jumped through the roof for that time, Mr. Carter, President Carter, put a windfall tax on it, windfall profit tax. Well, that's not going to happen here. I can tell you that right now. The Republicans aren't going to tax the oil companies extra for their extra profits, but they will be making extra profits. There's no question about it. Like my friend said, they're at capacity right now of oil, and so they're going to be selling what they pulled out of the ground at around $55 a barrel. Now is $95 a barrel, and they're going to be making money. And we could be as upset about that as we want to be, but that's what's going to happen. As far as the war itself, you know, Trump saying, no, they're all destroyed. They're all, you know, the whole Navy sunk. Their whole aircraft is destroyed. That's slight hyperbole, but it's not far from the truth. I mean, I'm not really going by just strictly government say-so on what's going on. I've been, you know, trying to get, you know, widespread of the news to try to come to a consensus. And there's no question that the military capabilities of Iran is almost gone. Most of their functional navy is sunk or destroyed or incapacitated. Most of their air force is. That's why you see them using drones. Drones is a cheap way of conducting war. They're comparatively much less expensive than piloted jets. And so that's why they're doing drone warfare against Israel and their neighbors, which I'll get to in a second for that too. And it's when you see a country that's almost exclusively using drones to protect themselves, that means their military capabilities are about gone. And so they could still cause a lot of havoc and a lot of trouble. But, you know, what was interesting to me, kind of a side note, the Iranians sold or gave the Russians thousands of drones for their Ukrainian crime. That's what it is to me. And they want them back for self-protection, and Putin said, yet on that. What's really interesting to me is that supposedly all the friends that Russia and China have, they never seem to come to their aid. They didn't do it for Venezuela. They're not doing it for Cuba, and they sure ain't doing it for Iran. I mean, they may be helping on the fringes a little bit. China's still the only buyer of their oil. But as far as, you know, Russia or China sticking its neck out or anything like that, they basically have abandoned all their friends. I hope countries around the world are taking note of this, but we'll never know. Also, they have lost almost all their missile launching capability. That's why you see Hezbollah bombing so heavily into Israel, and they're just using up their stocks. And then Israel, in retaliation, is just blowing the absolute hell out of Beirut. And, you know, you're going to have civilian casualties when that happens. I mean, you could target it as precisely as you want, but there's always going to be collateral damage in any kind of bombing like that. But when I see Hezbollah shooting off all their rockets, I see Iran shooting off drones, that pretty much to me means they're on their last legs. Now, Trump said, and I heard this on the radio driving up here, that the war's going to end very, very soon. Josh, you ever notice how he talks like a game show host sometimes? Coming up next.
I don't like it.
You know how vague it always is. It's always soon, coming soon. We're going to do this, and we're going to do that. When? You just hide and watch. Well, I'll let you know. You know, and all this other stuff, right? I don't expect him to say, well, we're going to bomb this place at 2:30 in the afternoon tomorrow, but it's always coming up next. You know, that kind of thing, right?
Stay tuned.
Yeah. Exactly. And, you know, again, I don't expect him to get on the air and detail all the plans, but it's just funny how he talks like that. Not just in this case, but just about any case you want to talk about, any policy you want to talk about. Now, the biggest issue right now is the mining of the Strait of Hormuz. That has 20% of the oil traffic of the world right there. And so I believe I have a slide on that, do I not?
I think you do.
Yeah, I do. There it is. There's the Strait of Hormuz right there on the screen for those who are watching or will watch later. 20% of the oil of the world shipped through that small, narrow channel. At the narrowest point, it's only 22 miles wide. And it is heavily, heavily mined. I think the next slide shows the various kinds of mines that these tankers having to deal with. Yeah, they have the ones that are anchored. They have floating ones. They got ones at the bottom, and say, well, what good is a mine at the bottom? They're magnetic, and so when a ship passes over, it's attracted to the steel hull, and they have all these that attach themselves to the hulls and that kind of thing. The one that's most dangerous really are those floating mines because you can't really keep track of them that particularly closely. And because of that, we're not having any oil shipments at all, hardly. And we've had 2 or 3 tankers that were hit by either drones or mines. And so it's pretty much shut it down. To me, I've never understood, you're looking at the geography. I wish they'd have created a canal or something like that for them to go through. But those tankers are too big to go through the Suez Canal, for one thing. And or any other canal like that we have. Those tankers are actually almost too big for the Panama Canal. So, they're pretty much forced to. And this is kind of a side note there. My irritation with the media about some of this business, particularly the mining, is that they get on the air and act like our leadership was surprised by this. CNN did a report last night that got a lot of pushback in the morning media about what CNN said was that our leaders were dumbfounded by the fact that they were going to mine that strait. That's rubbish. That's absolute trash. How many times do you think the Pentagon has simulated this event? Long before Trump even. And that's always been a main component is what is the reaction of the Iranians? And that was the first thing they would do is try to shut that port down. Because of the oil. All right. I think I have a couple of slides on that too, don't I? Here it is. Oil crisis worsens as Iran's leader vows to keep vital route closed. Well, okay. Even the most non-serious observer would know that this is going to be the first step they do. Okay. So the media coverage of this, there's a couple of outlets I really think they're almost rooting against the United States. And then CNN, which is about to be bought over by Paramount, which is close friends with the leaders of Paramount, are close friends with Trump. They're going to get a rude awakening pretty soon. The point about CNN saying that we were dumbfounded by this is ridiculous. They have plotted and planned this thing for a long time. Is it going exactly the way they want it to? Of course not, because that kind of leads to this next episode, this tragedy here. And the United States needs to own up to this tragedy. And that would be the accidental bombing of the girls' school. I think I have that clip, don't we? All right.
Yeah, give me a second to find it.
All right. And run through it. Okay. You're making me dizzy. Oh, there it is. All right.
Some new reporting tonight on that deadly strike on a school in Iran that killed 170 people. A preliminary Pentagon investigation revealing the U.S. is likely to blame. Our Courtney Kuby has the latest. And Courtney, what did they find?
Yeah, that's right, Tom. An ongoing U.S. military investigation into that deadly strike on an Iranian school now shows that the U.S. was likely behind it and relying on old intelligence when selecting that target. This, according to 4 sources familiar with those preliminary findings. Now, so far, it appears the munition struck where it intended because it was outdated intelligence showing that it was a military facility previously. The school was on the same compound as an old Iranian military base. The Defense Intelligence Agency gathered intel, including from the Israelis, and found the target to be valid. So now, information is typically double-checked by other U.S. agencies before any strike is approved. It's not clear where there was a breakdown in this process, though, Tom.
Okay, Courtney, we thank you for
that.
All
right, there you go. Here's the problem. what I've read, it wasn't in that report, but it was old intelligence, and they used AI to help plan this attack. All right, that's unacceptable. And as far as what they were going by is that building that was bombed used to be part of a naval base, which that school still was on. That school was on a naval base, but that particular building they thought was like the headquarters of that naval base. And apparently about 2 years ago, they repurposed that building and they put young girls in there for a girls' school. Now, this is a very old tactic to making civilians basically target or living shields, like Hamas did in Gaza, like Hezbollah does in Lebanon. This is an old tactic. That being said, we should have known better what that building was. Okay, we should have better intelligence. We should have double, triple checked it and not rely on AI to come up with the plans. So yes, that was not just a mistake. That was an error in judgment, definitely. Now, we could say, well, they shouldn't have been putting young girls in harm's way. Yes, that's true, but that's going to be part of any country's tactic, and we should have known better. And we don't need to obfuscate this and not make it what it, no big deal out of it. It is a big deal. It's a tragedy, and we need to own up to the fact that we made a mistake and we're liable. I understand those people who say, well, they shouldn't have been doing this. They shouldn't have been putting girls in harm's way. Well, yeah, but since they did, we needed to do everything we could to avoid that. And that means using the latest up-to-date and correct information. Would it have changed the target? I would hope so. Probably would. And there you go. Anyway.
Well, also,
go ahead.
What isn't harm's way at this point?
Well, that's true there. Most of the bombing in Tehran has been on military targets. We're not getting large numbers of reports of Iranian casualties. First of all, a great number of Iranians have left Tehran. Second of all, is that most of the military targets were not in civilian areas. So we're not getting the same kind of bombing like we did, like we mentioned before the show, like in World War II, where it had thousands and thousands of civilian casualties in Japan and Germany. No, we didn't have the technology then, certainly, but there you go. But I'm just saying, so far, this episode with this girls' school is the only reported casualties that we know of civilians. In contrast to the thousands of casualties the Iranian government has inflicted on its own people. Did you catch that part of the clip where they're going to shoot the protesters? Well, they've been doing that for years, but now they're not even going to hold back. So if anybody protests this war, they're probably going to be killed. And the thing about it is, Iran's throwing out these pictures of all these rallies in favor of their new Ayatollah, the new supreme leader. Those, first of all, those are coerced rallies for the most part. Yeah, there are people in Iran that support the theocracy there, but this is something the Iranians have done for decades. They will basically dragoon people into the street to be protesters or supporters, rather. Here, put a flag and wave it around. Here's some pictures of the Ayatollah. Wave it around, and then when the camera goes off, they go about their business. All right. So I don't place much stock on these rallies as any kind of indication of support. The Israeli foreign minister, who was on the clip, said that 85% oppose the Ayatollah. I don't know where they'd get 85%, but I would bet a whole dollar it's the vast majority. Hate this theocracy because they live so badly. Their standard of living for such a westernized nation is terrible. And they see what goes on, the suppression of information, but they get it anyway. And they see how the Saudis are living, the people in Dubai live, how the Israelis are living, the Jordanians are living. That's the only people they can really relate to, probably the Syrians. They're almost out of water. They have tremendous food shortages. Their currency is absolutely worthless. And so most people do hate the supreme leadership. So these rallies, don't pay any attention to them, really, because they are orchestrated, media-created events. And as far as the stock market and all this other stuff, I have a IRA, my wife and I do, from a retirement and all that. I'm not panicking at all. Why? Because when I was in college, I took finance class. My original point was I was going to be a banker at Baylor, and I ended up being a teacher. And it's a long story, but I'm no regrets. And I was in a finance class, and the professor said, "You make money in the bear markets." Some people are going to be making money off the stock market because the prices are dropping really low because people are panicking. Those who have the capital are just kind of sitting back and waiting, and then they're going to buy in, and the market will rise, and it'll just be wonderful, and they'll be making heaps of money. So I wouldn't panic. I really wouldn't. Stock market, unless you're in a position where you had to sell, the money you're, quote, losing is all on paper. Just like the money you're, quote, making is all on paper until you actually realize it. Okay? You have a lot of stocks, Josh?
I do. I have a 401k in the stock market.
You worried about it?
Maybe.
I wouldn't. How old are you? 29? Yeah, you're not going to be tapping that for a long, long time.
Yeah, no. But I don't know. I'm watching this stock market go down. I'm doing research on the kind of early signs of a stock market crash, and
I
can't say I'm not.
Here's the thing.
It's not that I'm losing sleep over it, but
what was the worst? And let's just keep it post World War II, so we don't get into depression stats. What was the worst day of loss for the stock market? Would you guess? I mean, when was the biggest loss on the stock market?
Because it wasn't 9/11, right?
Not percentage-wise, no. But it was a big one, yeah.
What was it?
It was in October of 1988. Now, the Dow Jones was about a tenth of what it is now in terms of its valuation. But I remember the day, late October of 1988, it went down like 600 points. And you say 600 points, they did that the other day. Yeah, but it was also, that was like 4% or 5% of the market. And it was the worst loss since like Black Tuesday of the Great Depression. And percentage-wise, we haven't matched that yet. So if you lose 1,000 points on the Dow Jones like we did last week on one day, what's going to happen the next day? People buying into it, and the market went right back up to, at least not all the way back to where it was, but it went up like 500-600 points. So people just waited out all the people who were panicking, then they bought low, and they were making money by noon that next day. So that's why the people who look at the stock market as an indication of how well this war is going really need to wake up, because that's not it. And as far as the gas prices,
and before we move on, I will caveat that I have very little experience in stock trading and don't plan on starting soon. So take my opinion with a grain of salt here.
Well, no, that's a good opinion. You know, it's fine. I have a financial advisor, David Lehman over at Edward Jones and Joshua. A little shout out. And people see the market as an indication of the health of the economy, but not always, because there's other factors in it other than just economic factors or economic data. And so, was there any reason the day after 9/11 or the week after, because they closed the market, was there any reason to panic sell? Not really. The economy was still in pretty good shape. Is our economy in good shape now? It's okay. You look at the gas prices. They're not going to be $3.50 5 months from now. But there you go.
What about groceries?
The problem,
I feel like groceries is a pretty big indicator for
that's a good question
as well.
It is, and that is a good concern. I'm glad you brought that up, because groceries, particularly in certain areas, have gone up. Meat prices have gone up, but again, it's not reflective of the war. The meat prices are going up because people want to eat meat. And so the supply is somewhat limited, but people demand meat. And so prices go up. Commodities of all kinds, people, they just kind of say, well, yeah, hamburger costs me a little bit more, but I'll pay a little bit more because I want a hamburger or I want a steak or whatever else. So they'll pay for it. And so there you go. As far as groceries ever returning to what they were prior to COVID, that's just not going to happen. I mean, there's something I taught in economics for years, what's called a ratchet effect, which in effect says once the prices are, quote, ratcheted to a certain level, they tend to stay there. And in fact, if we had massive price decreases across the board, that means we're in a massive depression. That's not a good sign. Deflation is worse than inflation in many cases. That was a big problem. The depression was deflation. Well, I'm getting way off the track. Look what you did.
Sorry.
We had to talk about Iran. Dadgummit.
You told me to weigh in.
I did. Okay, I'll ask you this question then.
All right.
What would victory look like to you in Iran? Yeah. Okay. You want to ponder that?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. What does victory look like? Trump gets in there originally in this war and says that it's going to be regime change. Now, I'm hearing on the radio, I saw on the news last night, whatnot, read it this morning, that we're going to end this war very, very soon. That's why I've been joking about his, game show announcing style. Very soon, after the next commercial break. But we are probably going to end this war pretty soon. Not just because of the Strait of Hormuz and whatever else, but we have pretty much incapacitated their entire leadership structure. I believe I have a slide of their latest supreme leader. His name is Mujtaba Khomeini. He is a son of the guy that just died last week, Ali Khomeini. And the problem with this guy, among other things, I've been reading in several different places that he probably is severely wounded. That's why you haven't seen him yet. He supposedly gave a voice speech to the people when he was chosen, but they're not even sure that was his voice because there's very little known about this guy. He's the son of the former, now late supreme leader, and he's very much unqualified by their own constitution to be the supreme leader. According to their own constitution, they're supposed to be of certain religious status and clerical status, and he's none of those things. This is strictly a nepotism thing. And what's ironic is one of the great complaints that the founder of the Islamic Republic, Ruhollah Khomeini, was protesting against was the hereditary rule of the Shahs. And so basically in their constitution, they said that it has to be a certain standard, has to be chosen by the, quote, assembly of experts, and has to not be related to the one they're replacing. Well, they just put him in there. Why? Probably because nobody else wanted the gig. And probably because it just shows the contempt that the Iranian government has, not just for its own people, but for its own movement, really, that we are the power. While we say goes, and any kind of adherence to principle is just talk. But what does victory look like? Well, when this is over, and like I said, I bet it'll be over at least before the end of the month. That's as late as I'll go. The regime will probably still be there, but it's going to be very, very weakened. The only way we'll really be able to dig out, root and branch their leadership and place somebody else in charge is for us to have military presence on the ground. That phrase I can't stand to use, boots on the ground. It'd take a military presence other than bombing. It would take our men and women and maybe Israelis, IDF, to go in there and occupy physically that country. You want to see that happen?
Nope.
And neither does most Americans, even those who support this war. I surely don't, because it would just be a lot of casualties.
Yeah.
All right. So they're not going to capitulate. We're not going to find somebody to cooperate with us like we did in Venezuela. When we picked up Maduro, he said, okay, to his vice president, you're next unless you want to cooperate. And she goes, oh, I'll be glad to cooperate. And she's been very cooperative. All right. Well, we're not going to find anybody like that in Iran. We're not going to find their leadership, somebody in their current leadership now that's going to become our go-to person. So the regime will probably stay, but it'll be in a much, much more limited capacity. Their defense systems are very, very much decimated. Second of all, Israel in particular, but we have demonstrated the capacity to do this again if we need to. And if they start doing this, what they've been, that I think particularly Israel will show no hesitation whatsoever, to go after them. And I think Iran knows that now. I think for years and years and years, they were counting on American presidents not really taking this step. Treating them, and Obama wasn't the first president to try to negotiate with them. I know Bush tried it. I know Clinton tried it. I know even towards the end of Reagan's administration, they were trying to negotiate a little bit with them. And Trump is the first president that says, nope, we're not negotiating. And I think now they realize that this is going to be the American policy as long as Trump's still in office. And Israel, I think now has said, we're not waiting anymore. October 7th, 2023 is their 9/11. And so I think that's going to change. Also, by attacking other countries in the region, they've made enemies of all those Arab nations. The Arab nations always looked upon Iran as a rogue outfit and a dangerous neighbor, but now they see them as enemies. And I don't think you're going to see these other nations abiding with an Iran that's that aggressive. I don't think Iran is going to have the wherewithal to be able to continue to support these terrorist groups worldwide, like Hezbollah. I don't think the Iranian people are going to tolerate this anymore because they've got no food and got no water and got no electricity, and yet they're still sending missiles to Hezbollah. I think they're going to see some major uprisings. My personal guess is that before too long, within the next, I'm going to give myself some leeway, 18 months, you're going to see a massive uprising in Iran of the people. And you're going to see a massive amount of bloodshed. But there's going to be a point where the Iranian people can't take it anymore, and they're going to rise up against their government. And that's really the only way the regime is going to get taken down. It has to be internal. It can't be by us. As far as the media response, there are a couple of outlets that I just really think have really embarrassed themselves. CNN and the New York Times. It's almost as if they're so consumed with hatred for Trump that nothing positive could be seen out of this thing. I do believe some people with Trump derangement syndrome, which I've been accused of because I've been critical of Trump online and here, and I've had people say, you have TDS. Why? Because I don't like his tariff policy, which, by the way, I still hate. So therefore I have TDS because I didn't like his policy or a couple other things he did. But in this case, you got to separate the man from the event. I mean, no one likes war. Only a psychopath would want war. And when I see some of the people in Trump's administration acting like Pete Hegseth, acting like, it's like some sort of video game, I'm like, what's the matter with you? But in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, this was something that was coming for a long time. And there was no way that this was avoidable if we wanted to no longer live under the potential threat of a nuclear-armed Iran. I said this on my last show. I never worried about them dropping a missile on Los Angeles. What I worried about is some smuggler, come across the border, and by golly, in the last administration, the border was wide open, smuggling in nuclear material, and they detonate a nuclear bomb the size of a suitcase in the middle of Times Square or in the Super Bowl or something like that. That's what I was more afraid of. I'll just kind of end with this. I'm much older than probably majority of the listeners, I hope anyway, because I like to have a young audience because I'm pretty hip. Don't you think I'm hip? I'm hip.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. Anyway, I lived in a time where the Russians were always a threat. When I was a real little kid, we did bomb drills. All right. Now, I'm talking about an early elementary age, and when we weren't doing that in high school or anything like that. But the point is, all through my youth and into my young adulthood, we always lived under the cloud of nuclear war with Russia. In retrospect, you have to understand the Russians, they were a lot more rational actors than these guys are. They wouldn't destroy us knowing that we could destroy them. And they also were patient. They saw their movement in 1,000-year terms, not in tomorrow. The Iranian leadership, they are not rational. They have an apocalyptic view of the world. They welcome their own destruction if it means ours. They see as their great reward in the afterlife is taking out as many infidels as possible. Now, let me be very clear. This is a radical fringe view of the Muslim world, okay? I don't want to get any atches or whatever you call it. Don't come at me that I'm being anti-Muslim. Most Muslims don't have this apocalyptic view, okay? The Sunnis, which are the vast majority of them, don't have this same view of their role in the world, okay? Now, but it's these fringe elements, Al-Qaeda and ISIS, which are Sunni, Taliban, these other groups, Hezbollah, Hamas, yeah. You'd say, well, they're all Muslim, aren't they? Well, they're not. First of all, they're not the mainstream Muslim, no more than some of these radical Christian movements are reflective of the Christian faith as a whole. And the fact that even amongst themselves, they have tremendous animosity. So, Hezbollah and Hamas never had worked together until they were both getting bombed by Israel. And that's a whole other thing. My point I'm trying to make is that we lived in my generation under the threat of nuclear war. Did it impinge upon my thinking daily? No. But every time there was any kind of international incident, that was always a factor to be considered. What are the Russians going to do? What are the Russians thinking? And we counted on them to value their own lives at least well enough to take that into consideration. The vast majority of the Iranian people don't share this apocalyptic view. I want to say that very clearly. The vast majority of the Iranian people, which includes more Jews and Christians than you might realize, don't share this apocalyptic view, but their leadership does. That their Revolutionary Guard does. I don't know. Okay. Our problem is not Iran. It's the Iranian leadership under the theocracy that are willing to kill you and die in the cause to do it. And that's why I think we need to consider all these factors. All right. I would ask one last question, or at least make one last point. I know many of y'all out there don't care for Donald Trump one iota, and I've sat here and been very critical about Mr. Trump in certain ways. Don't let that be the reason why your concerns or opposition to this war exists. It's because who's doing it. Because I do honestly believe this had to happen at one point or another, because we could not live with a nuclear-armed Iran. And there's just no way our lives would ever be safe again. We'd always have that threat of people willing to die to kill us. And we can't have them with nuclear capabilities. And that's how I'll end the show. What do you think, Josh? You got anything to add, or you just not like that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
But when you have Israel and the U.S. saying Iran is decimated, and then Iran texting Israeli citizens, hey, your government's lying to you, we've caused more damage than you think. When you have Trump saying, the war's almost over soon, there's basically nothing left. But also, we're looking at a draft, which I'm not here to say I told you so, but I definitely call it.
Well, I'll jump in. Okay, they shot that down real quick.
Okay.
They did. The reason why they even got any traction is because Ms. Leavitt, the press secretary, answered the question very, very badly. But they're not going to go draft. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, well, we've constantly been having to deal with extreme hyperbole from this administration. So me and a lot of people my age, I feel like, really just don't know who to trust anymore. We can't take anything for face value.
Well, I get it because there's so much competing media out there, and a lot of it is, bogus.
Yeah.
I do believe independent analysis, though, and the independent analysis shows that Iran is very much decimated. Not to the point that Trump will have you believe, but yeah, I do believe they're showing, the stats are showing that the defense capabilities of Iran are pretty much gone.
Yeah.
And I'm getting that from neutral observers, not Carolyn Levitt at the press conference.
Praise God.
No, I get it. I don't buy into it. No. But it's like every president. They're not going to go and say, "Yeah, I screwed that up." Well, yeah, we're getting our butts kicked. No, they'll go out there and tell you the best thing possible. Biden's telling us, "Oh, there's no inflation. Oh, we were our exit out of Afghanistan was perfect." And we knew that to be just total kaplack.
I'm sure.
Okay, but now go ahead.
That in that news clip, and I'm gonna try to not throw up in my mouth whenever I say this.
Mm-hmm.
But I do kind of have to agree with Joe Rogan when he said, we ran on a campaign of no more wars and president of peace, and yet here we are starting a war that nobody really knows why. That just hasn't sat well with me since day one. But,
well, I got nothing on that because it's absolutely true. In 2016 in particular, he was very critical of Bush's wars, as he called them, and Obama's wars, and he had very, very reluctant to use any kind of military in his first term, but not the second one. So I got nothing on that one. I don't have a really rebuttal to that because that it's true. So
yeah, that's my 2 cents.
That's your 2 cents.
I'll leave you with that.
Well,
you take us home.
Okay, let's talk about the nonprofits. It's kind of a odd segue, but we got a bunch going on in April. First of all, I got this latest one from our friends over at Next Step. It's the Walk for Life. It's going to be on April 18th. It's going to be like an 80s theme and whatnot. It's all good. I'm sure I'll have Summer and Megan on the show fairly soon. I think Megan's been out of pocket a little bit, and Summer was too last week. So I'll probably have them on the show within, but certainly before the 18th, probably early April. But anyway, sign up for that. There's the QR code in the bottom. Check out their Walk for Life. It's a big fundraiser for them. They have 2 major fundraisers, and this is one of them. The other is their gala they have in October, which is always very entertaining and moving. Also, we got a car show coming up on April 11th with the Rotary Club. Megan is the president of the Rotary Club this year, and so they're having a car show, and it's $30 if you want to put your car in there. You want to put your car in it?
Gosh, no.
Yeah,
I still need to get that repaired.
No, I'm just saying it's for fancy cars. And there's a bunch of them around here, and I always enjoy this. Then it's a $30 to enter your car in it, but it's free for the people to go check them out the cars. And this is going to be sponsored by Fairway Home, Grandview Bank, and the Burleson Area Midday Rotary, and I think one more. The DFW Car Show intro. Hey, back up.
Sorry.
All right, and it's going to be on 151 Northwest Tarrant Avenue in Burleson. That's roughly the address of Next Step. Okay. And now to the next one. There we go. Live Up Tonight, Center for ASD. I have her on the, come on, say it right. 26th. I was getting my dates mixed up in my head. No, Lisa Boltinghouse will be on, and probably Miranda with her too, on the 26th of this month. That's a couple of weeks from now. So we'll get more information about Light Up Tonight. It's their big fundraiser over at the Brick, 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock. And it's going to be fun, face painting, vendors, DJ Tay, apparently a big celebrity that I've just become acquainted with, I suppose. And there you go.
Let's have him on the show.
Hey, that'd be great.
Yeah. We've had the, is it the...
Do you know DJ Tay? I don't.
No, but
I mean, come on.
We have connections. I mean, you have connections.
Well, I'll ask Lisa when she's here.
All right.
And see if, he would do it and find out who this mysterious DJ is.
Let's have a live DJ show on Mr. Allard's Neighborhood.
You'd sound like it'd be a good idea, but Facebook would shut it down.
Probably.
The copyright. Yeah. Also, Vineyard Vibes is coming up. Oh, I was going to do the Vibes and then the golf tournament.
Vineyard Vibes.
All right, Vineyard Vibes. Okay, Vineyard Vibes on the 26th at the Sunday over at Lost Oak Winery, 3 to 7. The tickets are online. QR code there too. It's always a great thing. Check out Vineyard Vibes, btx.com. Say it right. I'm getting a little hoarse. Vineyard Vibes, btx.com. It's a great event. I've been in 2 or 3 of them. I think I've been 2 of the last 3, and it's always great. The music's great. It always has great things to buy at the silent auctions. The wine is there. Everybody likes the wine there. I haven't been socially there for a couple of years, but I've been at 3 or 4 events over there, and they had wine available, and it's always very, very good. And so there you go. Vineyard Vibes, benefiting the Harvest House. Kelly and Amber were on about 2 weeks ago to talk about it. I would not be surprised if they're on again pretty soon because, like I said, April is a busy month and days are booking up. So I need to make sure they got a space. All right. And now the golf tournament for the Burleson Opportunity Fund, May 1st. We need y'all to sign up. So there's the QR code, $200 a person, $800 a team. There's some tent sponsors and whatnot. We are doing our very, very best to keep providing the kind of services and scholarships for the students. Daniel Pentakis will be on the show about a month from now, and he's done a great job. Our leadership group is really taking the bull by the horns on some of this. And for us to maintain what we've been doing, we need help. As all there is to it. We need sponsorship for the golf tournament. We need sponsorship for the breakfast in October. And we could just use donations of any kind. And some of the foundations and others have really come through in the last month or so. But still, it's May 1st. That's a Friday over at Hidden Creek. And like I said, if you'll be the title sponsor, I know we're working on one, but these other sponsorships are still there. Banner sponsors, $500 if you want to have a tent to put on a hole and advertise your business. It's a business write-off, all that. $800 per team, $200 a person. So check it out on the Burleson Opportunity Fund website. I think that's it. There's a lot going on. I mean, This is the busy time of year for the nonprofits. They don't do as much in the summer and as much around Christmas time, so they do most of their business either in the spring or the fall. So they are. On Monday, I do have another nonprofit, Wings of Hope, will be back with us, and we'll talk about their events. And then Tuesday, God willing, Victoria will be here. Victoria will make her presence on the show once again. We'll talk about city business and whatnot. And if she does this to me again, I'm going to run against her city council. No, I'm not. I can't anyway.
Imagine.
No, she'd beat my brains out. She'd beat me like a 4-year-old at Kmart. And so, anyway, so I appreciate your input.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and so hope you can express your opinion freely here,
I'm getting a little more comfortable.
There you go. Okay. And we will see y'all next week. Thank you for letting me vent my spleen a little bit on a rant. Please share this with friends. I need the numbers. Did I say that out loud? Anyway, so we'll see you next week.